Welcome to Stories Pulse, where powerful tales come alive. Today's story, a millionaire's cruel humiliation and the twist of fate that followed, dives deep into a dramatic night of arrogance, a humbling fall, and an unexpected hero. If you're captivated by tales that reveal hidden truths and unforgettable twists, you're in the right place. Don't miss out on our upcoming stories. Be sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon to stay updated, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to share it with friends who love a good plot twist. In the lavish banquet hall of the grandest hotel in the city, a celebration was underway. Business magnates, celebrities, and high society elites mingled under the crystal chandeliers, laughter and the clinking of glasses filling the air. At the center of it all stood Victor Rain, a self-made millionaire known for his ruthless business tactics, sharp wit, and intimidating presence. Handsome and impeccably dressed, Victor was used to commanding respect, or more accurately, fear from those around him. But tonight, something unexpected would unfold. A moment of cruelty, a sharp exchange of words would take place in front of the wealthy audience. In less than a minute after he delivered the humiliating blow, Victor Rain would collapse to the floor, his body betraying him just as surely as his arrogance had moments earlier. It all began with a nurse named Grace Matthews. Title: a millionaire cruelly humiliated the nurse in front of everyone. 1 minute later, he fainted from what she said. Grace Matthews had worked in the medical field for over a decade. She was a seasoned nurse, the kind of woman who could comfort a dying patient with one hand and administer a life-saving injection with the other. Grace had seen people at their worst, patients terrified of their diagnosis, families grieving at the bedside, and sometimes the fragile threads of life snapping away without warning. But the world outside the hospital was not always so kind. Though skilled and compassionate, Grace often found herself struggling to make ends meet. Her job was demanding, yet she lived paycheck to paycheck. To supplement her income, she began taking on private nursing jobs for the wealthy, attending to their medical needs at home or even during events. That's how she came to work for Victor Rain. Victor had always believed himself invincible. His heart problems were a nuisance, something he dismissed with a wave of his hand whenever the doctors warned him to slow down. He was only 42, after all, and in the prime of his career. But after a recent health scare, he begrudgingly hired Grace as a private nurse to monitor his condition during important public events. It was humiliating, he thought, to have a nurse on call, but necessary to keep his company running and his image intact. Grace was quiet and efficient, attending to Victor with professionalism and care. Yet, there was a palpable tension between them from the start. Victor's dismissive attitude toward her work, his callous remarks about her lowly profession, grated on Grace. She was no stranger to arrogance, but Victor's disdain was sharper, more personal. On the night of the gala, Grace arrived at the hotel to accompany Victor as his nurse for the evening. The event was a charity fundraiser for Victor's own organization, an annual spectacle where the rich displayed their wealth and goodwill for the world to see. Grace remained in the background, monitoring Victor from a distance as he circulated the room, shaking hands and charming his guests. She was used to this, being invisible, unnoticed in her uniform. It gave her time to observe, to see beyond the glitz and glamour. And what she saw was the hollowness in the people around her, the superficial exchanges, and the way Victor basked in their admiration. As the evening wore on, Victor's mood seemed to darken. Perhaps it was the stress of the event, or the fact that his rival, a fellow millionaire named David Huxley, had stolen much of the attention with a larger-than-life donation. Whatever it was, Victor's frustration boiled over when he noticed Grace standing in a corner watching. He strode over to her, his eyes narrowed, irritation seething beneath the surface. The music and conversation around them hummed in the background, but soon all eyes were on them. "Why are you standing there like a statue?" Victor spat, his voice sharp enough to cut through the noise of the party. "Are you too lazy to even pretend to do your job?" Grace stiffened but remained calm. "I'm here if you need me, Mr. Rain." Victor's eyes flashed with disdain. "Need you? You think I need you? You're just a nurse. I pay you to stand there and look competent, but we both know you're just waiting for a paycheck. You have no idea what real work is: building empires, making decisions that matter." The guests around them had grown quiet, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of discomfort and morbid curiosity. Grace felt the weight of their stares, but more than that, she felt the heat of Victor's venomous words. He was not just humiliating her, he was trying to reduce her to nothing in front of everyone. For a moment, Grace considered walking away. She could leave and never return to this world of excess and arrogance. But then she thought about all the people she had helped in her life, the ones who truly needed her, and she realized something. Victor Rain was a man who thought he owned the world, but right now he was standing on the precipice of a fall he didn't even see coming. She took a deep breath and looked Victor squarely in the eye. "You're right, Mr. Rain," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I am just a nurse. But in my years of being just a nurse, I've seen people who think they're untouchable, people like you. And it's always the same story. One minute they're on top of the world, untouchable, invincible, but all it takes is one moment, 1 minute, for everything to change. Your money, your power, none of that can stop what's coming if you don't listen to the warnings." Victor's sneer faltered just for a second, but he recovered quickly. "Warnings? Are you threatening me now?" he scoffed. "Don't you dare lecture me. You don't have the right." And then, just as suddenly as his anger had flared, his face went pale. His hand flew to his chest and his knees buckled. In an instant, Victor Rain, the man who believed himself untouchable, crumpled to the floor in front of his guests. The room erupted into chaos. People rushed forward, shouting for help, but it was Grace who acted with precision and speed. Kneeling beside Victor, she checked his pulse, her years of training kicking in as she worked to stabilize him. He was still conscious, but barely. His heart, already fragile, had been pushed to its limit by the stress and anger he had unleashed moments earlier. As Grace worked to save the man who had just humiliated her, the irony was not lost on her. This was the part of the job that never ceased to amaze her, the fine line between life and death, between arrogance and helplessness. Victor Rain, the man who had everything, was now utterly dependent on her, the nurse he had just scorned. The paramedics arrived within minutes, and Grace gave them a full report. Victor was rushed to the hospital, where he was stabilized and kept under observation. His life had been spared for now. The next day, Victor woke up in a hospital bed, his body weak but his mind racing. He remembered the humiliation of the night before, the words Grace had spoken to him, and the moment his heart had betrayed him. He had never felt so vulnerable, so utterly powerless. When Grace entered his room to check on him, he looked away, embarrassed and angry. "You must be enjoying this," he muttered. Grace shook her head. "I don't take pleasure in anyone's suffering, Mr. Rain. But I hope you understand now what I was trying to tell you. Your health, your life, it's not something you can control with money or power. You have to take it seriously." Victor glared at her. "You think you can lecture me about my life?" "I'm not lecturing you," Grace said calmly. "I'm telling you the truth. You can ignore it if you want, but one day you won't be able to outrun it." Victor was silent, his mind spinning with a mix of emotions: shame, anger, fear. He hated that she was right, that she had seen through his facade, but he couldn't deny the truth of her words. For the first time in his life, Victor Rain was forced to confront his own mortality. In the weeks that followed, Victor's life changed in ways he never could have predicted. His public image had taken a hit after the incident at the gala. Word had spread about his collapse, and though his PR team did their best to control the narrative, the damage was done. Investors began to doubt his leadership, and competitors sensed weakness. But more than that, Victor himself was changed. His health scare had shaken him to the core, forcing him to reevaluate not just his physical well-being, but the way he had lived his life. The arrogance that had once been his armor now felt hollow and fragile. Grace, meanwhile, had returned to her work as a nurse, continuing to help those who needed her without fanfare or recognition. She had done her job, saved a life, and carried on.